Welcome back to Zarila HOA Stories. Drop your country or city name in the comments. Let's begin Chapter 1 ***. In Chapter 1 of the HOA Wars, how a small dispute turned into a neighborhood revolution, we meet Sarah Mitchell, an ordinary homeowner in Zarila, a suburban neighborhood that prides itself on being quiet and orderly. Sarah, like most of her neighbors, is content with her life, until one day, a simple dispute with the HOA, Homeowners Association, begins to unravel the peace that has defined Zarila for years. It all starts with a seemingly trivial issue. Sarah, an artist at heart, decided to paint her front door a bright shade of teal to give her home a bit of personality. She felt it was a harmless way to add some color to her otherwise neutral-colored home. After all, it was her door, her property. But within a few days, she received a formal letter from the HOA. The letter stated that her door violated community aesthetics and needed to be repainted within 7 days or she would face a fine. Sarah, taken aback, immediately reached out to the HOA office. She spoke with Kathy Reynolds, the head of the HOA, who explained that all exterior colors were pre-approved, and any deviation from the approved list would lead to penalties. Kathy's tone was strict, almost cold, which frustrated Sarah further. This wasn't just about a door, it was about the HOA controlling every aspect of homeowners' lives, down to the color of their doors. At first, Sarah tried to comply, repainting the door in a neutral beige color, as the HOA requested. But the experience left her unsettled. She began to wonder, how much power did the HOA have over her home, her personal choices? It wasn't just the door. There were other residents in Zarila who had been quietly grumbling about the HOA's overreach. Strict rules about yard decorations, fines for even minor violations, and an unyielding attitude from the board. As Sarah walked through the neighborhood, she noticed that most of her neighbors were either too afraid to challenge the HOA or simply didn't care enough to speak up. However, there was one couple, Alex and Marcus Young, who had always been vocal about the HOA's power. They had transformed their front yard into a vibrant display of creative art, complete with a series of abstract sculptures and colorful flowers, all in direct defiance of HOA regulations. Their yard was an eyesore to some, but to Sarah, it was a symbol of rebellion, a small but potent act of defiance against the HOA's controlling grip. The HOA, however, had already sent Alex and Marcus multiple warnings, and the couple was on the brink of facing severe fines. Sarah's heart began to race as she thought about her own experience, wondering if she would be next. That's when she decided to do something bold. She reached out to a few other neighbors who were similarly unhappy but too scared to speak up. One by one, they started to share their stories of petty fines, invasive rules, and Chapter 2, The Spark of Rebellion ****. The revolt against the HOA begins in earnest in Chapter 2, as Sarah Mitchell's quiet neighborhood in Zarila finds itself on the brink of something much larger than a simple dispute over a painted door. Following Sarah's initial frustrations and her meeting with neighbors who also shared their grievances, the stage is set for a clash of ideologies, homeowners fighting for autonomy versus an HOA that believes its authority is absolute. The chapter opens with Sarah reflecting on the meeting she hosted at her house, where her living room had been filled with familiar faces from the neighborhood. People like Tom Harris, a veteran homeowner with decades of experience living in Zarila, and the Carters, a young couple who had been too scared to voice their opinions until now, all gathered to share their stories. As Sarah listens to each neighbor's concerns, ranging from high fines for trivial matters to a lack of transparency in the HOA's decisions, she begins to feel the weight of responsibility. Sarah had hoped to hear a few grumblings here and there, but what she found was something much more profound. The HOA wasn't just a nuisance, it was a source of tension and division in their community. It had grown too powerful, and the residents were ready for change. But the question remained, how could they challenge an institution that seemed so entrenched, so omnipresent in their lives? That's when Sarah's unlikely ally, Alex Young, spoke up. Known for his rebellious nature and disregard for HOA regulations, Alex suggested they begin organizing more formally. If we don't stand up now, we'll keep being pushed around, one rule at a time, he said, his voice full of conviction. It was Alex's suggestion to create a petition, something simple, something legal, that would demonstrate to the HOA that they were no longer just a handful of disgruntled residents, but a unified group ready to fight back. Mia Patel, a tech-savvy millennial homeowner, quickly volunteered to help with the petition. Within hours, Mia had created a website, set up a social media campaign, and launched an online petition that would go viral within days. They called it the Zarila Homeowners Bill of Rights, a demand for more transparency, fairer regulations, and a genuine voice in the decisions that affected their homes and lives. As Sarah and the others worked on getting the word out, they discovered just how many people in Zarila felt the same way. The petition gained momentum quickly, with neighbors sharing it on Facebook, Twitter, and even sending it out via email. Soon, they had hundreds of signatures. What had started as a small, intimate revolt was turning into something much bigger. The HOA was no longer just a group of strict rule enforcers, it was a symbol of everything that was wrong with the way the community had been run. But with this newfound power came fear. The HOA, especially Kathy Reynolds, would not take kindly to these challenging. Chapter 3, The HOA Strikes Back. In Chapter 3, the rebellion reaches a critical turning point as Sarah Mitchell and her neighbors take their petition to the HOA. The once hidden discontent of the residents of Zarila has now erupted into a full-scale challenge against the institution that has long controlled their community. However, the HOA, led by Kathy Reynolds, is not a passive opponent. As Sarah and her group of supporters quickly realize, the battle for Zarila is only beginning, and the HOA isn't going to give up its grip without a fierce fight. The chapter opens with Sarah and her group nervously preparing for the HOA meeting. It's a crucial moment, the residents' first direct confrontation with the organization that has dominated their lives for so long. Sarah stands in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to steady her nerves. She is now the face of this revolt, and the pressure of leading the charge weighs heavily on her. But she is determined. The petition has already garnered hundreds of signatures, and the support from the neighborhood is overwhelming. Yet, a lingering fear gnaws at her. What if the HOA simply dismisses them? What if they don't take this seriously? As the meeting time draws closer, Sarah arrives at the HOA headquarters, a modern building that feels impersonal and cold. Alongside her are her trusted allies, Tom Harris, the seasoned veteran, who has been through these types of fights before, Mia Patel, the tech-savvy activist who helped orchestrate the petition, and Alex and Marcus Young, the rebel couple whose defiant spirit had first ignited the idea of resistance. They enter the conference room with a mixture of determination and apprehension, ready to present their demands. When the meeting starts, Kathy Reynolds immediately takes control, her tone sharp and commanding. She opens with her usual spiel about the importance of maintaining community standards and preserving the integrity of Zarila. But Sarah doesn't back down. She speaks passionately about the need for fairness and transparency, outlining how the HOA's strict rules have made the residents feel stifled and powerless. The petition is presented, a collective voice of frustration and a call for change. At first, Kathy tries to deflect their concerns, using legal jargon and obscure rules to justify the HOA's actions. But Sarah pushes back, armed with the overwhelming support of her neighbors. As the back-and-forth intensifies, it becomes clear that Kathy is uncomfortable with the newfound challenge to her authority. Her demeanor shifts from professional to defensive, and she grows increasingly hostile. The HOA's board members remain mostly silent, observing the exchange but unwilling to take a stand either way. In a final attempt to reassert control, Kathy makes a threatening move. She warns Sarah and the group that their petition could be seen as a direct violation of the HOA's bylaws. She hints that there could be serious repercussions, including fines. Chapter 4, The Battle Escalates. In Chapter 4 of the HOA Wars, How a Small Dispute Turned into a Neighborhood Revolution, the rebellion against the HOA takes a significant step forward as Sarah Mitchell and her neighbors face the repercussions of their actions. Despite the HOA's threats, the residents of Zarila are more determined than ever to challenge the authority of the Homeowners Association. However, with each passing day, the stakes grow higher, and the HOA's tactics become more aggressive, testing the resolve of the homeowners who have dared to defy the system. The chapter opens with Sarah feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. After the HOA meeting, she thought there might be a brief respite, a pause before the HOA's next move. But instead, the community begins to feel the pressure of the HOA's retaliation. Sarah receives several phone calls from neighbors reporting that the HOA has started issuing fines for seemingly minor infractions, including things as trivial as improperly placed trash bins, overgrown lawns, and even the color of decorative flowers in front yards. These fines are not just arbitrary, they are large, designed to intimidate the homeowners into submission. Sarah's initial reaction is to call a neighborhood meeting. She knows that the HOA is trying to break their spirits, but she also knows this is a turning point. If they back down now, the fight will be over. She can't allow the HOA to win by using fear as a weapon. The meeting is held at Tom Harris's house, where the group of rebels gathers once again. Sarah's frustration is evident as she speaks to the group, telling them that they can't let the HOA bully them into compliance. This is our home, our community. They can't just take it from us, she urges. During the meeting, a new ally emerges. Evie Foster, a retired schoolteacher, who offers a calm yet powerful perspective. Evie has lived in Zarila for decades, and she recalls a time when the neighborhood thrived with a sense of togetherness, before the HOA had assumed its iron grip. We need to remember that we are more than just names on a list of violations. We are a community, and communities protect each other, Evie says. Her words resonate deeply with the group, reinforcing their collective determination. Meanwhile, Alex and Marcus Young continue their defiant acts, boldly decorating their front yard with even more outlandish art pieces, knowing full well they are pushing the HOA's limits. Their open defiance becomes a symbol of resistance, and soon other homeowners begin to follow suit, with a few taking to social media to share photos of their homes in rebellion. Mia Patel, the tech-savvy activist, leads the charge on social media, posting regular updates about the growing movement and encouraging others to join the cause. As the rebellion spreads, Sarah and the group face mounting pressure. The HOA, growing desperate, begins to escalate its tactics. They organize a series of private meetings with certain HO. Chapter 5, A Shifting Tide. In Chapter 5 of the HOA Wars, how a small dispute turned into a neighborhood revolution, the rebellion against the HOA reaches a new level of intensity as Sarah Mitchell and her fellow homeowners begin to see the fruits of their labor. The movement that started as a small petition and a few defiant acts has now gained significant traction, and the HOA, once a seemingly invincible force, is beginning to feel the pressure. However, with this newfound momentum comes greater challenges, as the residents of Zarila must confront not only the HOA's retaliatory tactics but also the internal divisions that threaten to tear their movement apart. The chapter opens with Sarah attending a neighborhood rally held in the park, where dozens of residents have gathered to show their support for the cause. The atmosphere is electric, with people holding signs that read "Our homes, our rules, and Zarila deserves better." Sarah looks around at the crowd, realizing how far they've come since that first meeting in her living room. What was once a small group of disgruntled homeowners is now a full-blown movement, and Sarah, despite her doubts, is beginning to feel like a true leader. Mia Patel, the social media expert, continues to work tirelessly, posting updates and organizing online campaigns to rally more people to the cause. Her work has brought the issue to the attention of not just the local community but also the broader region, drawing support from other homeowners associations that have faced similar issues. The movement is growing, and as word spreads, more people from neighboring communities reach out to express their solidarity, eager to join the fight against the HOA's oppressive tactics. However, with the success of the movement comes the challenge of maintaining unity. At a critical moment in the chapter, Sarah and her team face their first major internal conflict. Some residents, like David Carter, begin to question the effectiveness of their actions. David, who had initially supported the cause, is now becoming increasingly frustrated with the tactics being used by the group. He worries that the protest is getting out of hand and that the HOA's retaliatory measures, fines, threats of legal action, are damaging the neighborhood in ways that can't be undone. His doubts resonate with a few other homeowners who are starting to fear the consequences of continuing to stand up to the HOA. The tension between Sarah's more aggressive approach and David's desire for peace begins to bubble to the surface. A heated argument breaks out between Sarah and David during a strategy meeting. "We can't just sit back and let them walk all over us," Sarah exclaims, her voice filled with frustration. David, his face drawn with worry, counters, "We need to think about the long-term impact on the community. Do you really think this is the way to win?" The group falls into silence, unsure of how to resolve the growing divide. In the midst of tea. Chapter 6, The Breaking Point. In Chapter 6 of the HOA Wars, How a Small Dispute Turned into a Neighborhood Revolution, the conflict between Sarah Mitchell's group and the HOA reaches its most intense and crucial point. After months of resistance, the homeowners of Zarila are facing the full wrath of the HOA's power. The battle lines have been drawn, and both sides are willing to do whatever it takes to win, but the question remains, how far will each side go before everything breaks? The chapter opens with Sarah waking up to an alarming message from Mia Patel. The HOA has escalated their retaliation tactics, and it's worse than anything Sarah and her neighbors had imagined. The HOA has begun sending legal notices, warning residents that if they don't comply with the rules, they will be taken to court. The fines are mounting, and the HOA has also started targeting the leaders of the movement, including Sarah, with personal threats of legal action. Sarah feels the weight of this news press down on her. She has always known this would get ugly, but now the stakes feel even higher. At the same time, the support from the community is at an all-time high. Despite the threats and mounting fines, more and more residents are joining the cause. What started as a small movement has turned into a full-fledged rebellion, and the streets of Zarila are buzzing with energy. People are openly decorating their homes in defiance of the HOA's strict rules, and the HOA can no longer ignore the growing tide of resistance. However, Sarah knows that this growing support might be their downfall if they don't tread carefully. The HOA, now under increasing pressure, is not just going to sit back and let this happen. As Sarah meets with her core team at Tom Harris's house, the tension is palpable. David Carter, who has always been more cautious, expresses his deepening concerns. "This is getting dangerous, Sarah. The fines are just the beginning. They want to destroy us, and the longer we keep fighting, the more they'll come after us. I don't want to see any of us lose everything over this." His words strike a chord with many in the room, especially those who fear the long-term repercussions for their families and homes. But Sarah, her voice firm and resolute, refuses to back down. "If we give up now, we lose everything we've fought for. We can't let them crush us with fear." In a bold move, Sarah decides that they need to take the fight to the next level. They organize a massive public demonstration, calling on all residents of Zarila and neighboring communities to come together and show the HOA that they will not be silenced. The demonstration is set to take place in front of the HOA's headquarters, a bold and risky move, considering the HOA's legal threats and the possibility of police involvement. As the day of the demonstration arrives, the tension is unbearable. Sarah stands in front of a crowd of hundreds of residents, many of whom she has never met before. Why? Chapter 7, A Divided Community. In Chapter 7 of the HOA Wars, How a Small Dispute Turned into a Neighborhood Revolution, the tension between Sarah Mitchell and the HOA reaches a critical point as the once unified community of Zarila begins to fracture. While the rebellion gains momentum, cracks start to appear within the resistance movement itself. The residents of Zarila must now navigate the consequences of their actions, facing not just the power of the HOA but also the internal divisions that threaten to tear their fight apart. The chapter opens with Sarah feeling both triumphant and anxious. The recent demonstration had been a success, garnering widespread media attention and support from neighboring communities. However, it also drew the HOA's ire, and Sarah knew that the HOA would retaliate with even greater force. Kathy Reynolds, the head of the HOA, had made it clear that they would not back down, and the HOA was now preparing to take legal action against Sarah and the other leaders of the movement. Despite the challenges ahead, Sarah is determined to press on. She calls for another meeting with the core group of rebels, hoping to strategize and solidify their next move. As they gather at Tom Harris's house, the mood is different from past meetings. There is a sense of uncertainty in the air, and not everyone is as resolute as Sarah. David Carter, who had been one of the earliest supporters of the rebellion, now expresses his growing concerns. "We've pushed the HOA to the brink. But at what cost?" David asks, his voice tinged with worry. "People are losing their jobs, their homes, and their peace of mind over this. I think we need to rethink our approach before it's too late." David's words resonate with some of the group, especially those who had joined the movement more recently. They are beginning to question the tactics that Sarah and the more radical members of the group have adopted. Some residents, fearing the mounting legal consequences, are starting to consider backing out of the fight. The unity that once defined their rebellion is beginning to splinter. Sarah, determined not to lose momentum, argues that they cannot back down now. "If we let them win, we'll be giving up everything we've worked for," she says, her voice firm. "We've come too far to just walk away. This isn't just about us, it's about future generations who shouldn't have to live under the thumb of an overreaching HOA." While her words ignite a spark in some of the more passionate rebels, others remain unconvinced. The divide between the more cautious homeowners and the radicals is growing wider, and Sarah realizes that her leadership is being tested in a way it never has before. The situation worsens when Kathy Reynolds and the HOA take legal action, filing lawsuits against several key members of the resistance, including Sarah. The legal battles begin to take a toll on the homeowners, both financially and emotionally. The once supportive neighborhood is. Chapter 8, The Turning Point. In Chapter 8 of the HOA Wars, How a Small Dispute Turned into a Neighborhood Revolution, Sarah Mitchell faces the consequences of the internal divisions within the community and the growing pressure from the HOA. With the resistance movement at a crossroads, Sarah must navigate the challenges of unity and strategy while confronting the powerful HOA that continues to escalate its retaliation. This chapter marks a pivotal moment where Sarah is forced to reevaluate her approach to the rebellion and consider a path that could either make or break their fight for Zarila. The chapter opens with Sarah feeling the weight of the rebellion's growing tensions. Despite the progress made in rallying the community and gaining attention from neighboring neighborhoods, the cracks within the resistance are becoming harder to ignore. The legal threats from the HOA, combined with the mounting fear among the residents, are taking their toll. More homeowners are starting to back out, and the movement's unity is slipping away. Sarah is no longer just fighting the HOA, she's fighting to keep her community together. At a crucial meeting with her core group of supporters, Sarah faces the reality of the situation. Tom Harris, the experienced veteran, speaks first. "Sarah, we're all in this together, but we can't ignore the strain this is putting on families. People are afraid. Legal fees are piling up, and some of them are considering just paying the fines and going back to the way things were." His words sting, but they are a reality that Sarah can no longer deny. David Carter, once a passionate supporter of the cause, has grown increasingly disillusioned with the tactics of the resistance. "I'm not saying we should give up," David says, "but we need to think about the future. We can't just keep escalating this. We've been making enemies, and it's starting to tear the neighborhood apart." His concerns mirror those of several others in the group who are now questioning the strategy of open defiance. In response, Sarah passionately defends the movement. "If we stop now, we'll be giving in to everything we've fought against. The HOA will just keep getting stronger, and we'll be trapped under their control forever." Her words are met with silence, but Sarah can see that the divide between the more radical members and the cautious ones is growing. The group needs a solution that can bridge this gap, otherwise, the movement will collapse under its own weight. As Sarah walks away from the meeting, she feels a moment of clarity. She realizes that the strategy of outright confrontation may not be the best path forward. The HOA is using the legal system and fear to break the community, and Sarah knows that they can't win if they keep fighting in the same way. There must be another way to confront the HOA, one that doesn't tear apart the community they are fighting for. That evening, Sarah receives an unexpected message. It's from Evie Foster, th.